Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, today we're opening our sources on, well, a real financial shockwave, something that moved way faster than any stock ticker. We're talking about that moment Netflix lost over $15 billion in market value.
Yeah, 15 billion, just wiped out.
Gone. It was like this instantaneous investor panic. So our mission right now is pretty straightforward. We want to unpack how just one, prominent public figure triggered this whole thing.
Right.
And maybe what this huge loss tells us about the deeper vulnerabilities in the streaming world.
And this analysis, it's coming straight from financial reports that dropped just a couple of days ago. They tracked the market's almost visceral reaction to one social media message.
Visceral is a good word for it.
Yeah, it's like a perfect case study of modern market psychology. You've got this investor environment that's already kind of on edge. Yeah. Exactly, jittery. So jittery that a single call to action can basically detonate a multi-billion-dollar crisis. The core question for you, the listener, is how does one person's public criticism snowball into a $15 billion problem for a global giant like Netflix?
Okay.
We need to look past the noise, and into the mechanics of why the market was just ready to panic.
Okay, let's unpack this, and let's nail down that scale first, because it's easy to just gloss over a number like 15 billion.
It really is.
That's market capitalization, a massive chunk of value gone like that. The sources confirm it was kicked off after Elon Musk publicly called for users to cancel their Netflix subscriptions.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about some small influencer here. This was a serious, quantifiable loss for, one of the original streaming services.
Well, the power of the messenger, that's the first layer you absolutely can't avoid. We're basically tracking influence as a financial variable now.
Influence is a variable.
Okay. Musk's sheer reach, the size of his audience on social media, it just turned his personal criticism into a market signal. Plain and simple.
So when he told people to cancel,
the market didn't hang around. It didn't wait weeks to see the actual subscriber numbers drop. It priced in the threat of that happening almost instantly.
Okay. So investors weren't reacting to, a bad quarterly report that had already happened. They were reacting to the fear of what that kind of amplification could do to the next report.
Precisely, yeah. His statement was like an immediate alarm bell going off about subscriber retention.
And in streaming, that's everything, right? Subscriber.
It's the holy grail. Growth and retention. So any highly visible external thing that even looks like it threatens that foundation, well, the market treats it like an existential crisis.
Which leads to this kind of flash crash volatility we saw.
Exactly. It just shows how corporate reputation, investor feelings, they can now be shaped, instantly by these big social media figures who command these huge engaged audiences.
Okay, that sets the stage for why the reaction was so huge. But let's shift to the friction itself. $15 billion doesn't just vanish because a celebrity says they don't like something.
No.
What was the specific criticism about Netflix's content that actually lit the fuse here?
So the sources, they really pinpoint the catalyst as being about a perception issue around content choices. Musk criticized their programming, and he explicitly used the term wokeness. That's what he cited as, the problem he saw with their content strategy.
Right. And, okay, this is where we need to be careful, because we're touching on politically charged stuff.
Absolutely.
We're just reporting impartially on what the source of the criticism was, not, taking sides or saying if it's valid.
Correct.
But the fact that this specific type of content critique can cause such financial instability, well, that suggests it's way more than just casual commentary, doesn't it?
Oh, it is. And it's not the first time Netflix has had to sort of navigate these criticisms, this tension between creative freedom and balancing what different parts of the audience expect. The source material kind of frames it as this ongoing public perception tightrope they have to walk.
Okay.
But what made this time different, really, was the combination. You had the critique itself focusing on content that, let's face it, some audiences are very vocal about rejecting, and you had the ultimate amplifier.
Musk.
So the market essentially looked at that content choice, which might normally be seen as just, creative output.
Yeah.
And suddenly treated it as a quantifiable financial risk, purely because of who pointed it out and how loudly.
Wow. So when a company like Netflix invests heavily in diverse content, maybe stuff that's culturally provocative,
they're taking calculated creative risks. That's the business.
But if someone like Musk mobilizes a chunk of the audience against those choices,
then investors suddenly see those creative bets not as potential hits, but as, liabilities, things that could trigger a mass cancellation wave.
That must add a whole new layer of risk assessment inside Netflix when they're greenlighting shows.
You'd have to think so. It definitely complicates things.
Okay, so here's where I think it gets really interesting. Because even a massive amplifier like Musk, I mean, wiping out $15 billion, that suggests the ground under Netflix's stock was maybe already a bit shaky, right?
Absolutely.
The market's reaction feels like it reflects these wider pre-existing worries. Like the Musk tweet was almost an excuse to sell for people who are already nervous.
That's the critical takeaway, I think. This event wasn't the cause of weakness. It was more like a pressure release. It exposed deeper underlying stresses.
Okay.
If you connect this to the bigger picture, the stock plummeted because investors were already intensely nervous about Netflix's whole structural position in the market.
And what are those structural pressures? We're talking about the streaming wars, the competition.
Absolutely. That's the core of it. Netflix isn't operating in a vacuum anymore. They're not the unchallenged leader they once were.
Right.
Streaming services face just relentless existential competition from these major, deep-pocketed players, all fighting for the same subscribers.
Disney Plus, Amazon Prime Video, Hulu.
Exactly. All backed by these huge corporate entities. They're all mentioned as constant threats in the reports. And what makes this really bite is the idea of content saturation.
Content saturation. Explain that a bit more.
Well, think back. In the early days, Netflix could kind of afford to be the experimental curator, right? Because they were pretty much the default choice.
Yeah, there wasn't much else.
Now you've got rivals like Disney Plus offering these exclusive, massive, stable franchises, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar. That stuff creates huge subscriber stickiness.
Meaning people are less likely to cancel Disney Plus because they want that specific content.
Precisely. So now if the Netflix subscriber gets unhappy with some content choices there, they don't just, grumble about it anymore. They have multiple high-quality, viable alternatives they can switch to immediately.
Ah, the exit ramps are easy to find now.
Very easy. And the report, it really emphasizes this stark conclusion. Netflix's old dominance in the market is just no longer guaranteed.
Wow. That's the real so what here, isn't it?
It is.
Their leadership is juggling these content controversies, but it's happening on top of this fiercely competitive, saturated market where they literally cannot afford to lose even a small fraction of their base without huge financial pain.
Right. That environment puts just intense pressure on every single decision they make, short-term and long-term strategy.
It forces them to adapt, and fast. They're kind of fighting a war on two fronts then, defending their content choices while also fiercely protecting their market share from rivals who are just waiting to pounce on any misstep.
That's a good way to put it. Rivals are happy to capitalize on any perceived weakness or controversial programming decision. It's a high-stakes game.
So, given that backdrop of anxiety and the immediate $15 billion hit, what's Netflix actually doing? Or maybe not doing? Did they put out a statement? Did they address Musk directly?
They didn't. Nope. The sources specifically note that Netflix hasn't issued any official statement directly addressing Musk's comments. Now, that silence, maybe it's strategic, trying not to give the critique more oxygen.
Could be. But that silence probably just ramps up the scrutiny on their actual strategy, doesn't it? The market wants reassurance. Now.
It does. Investors need to see that the core business model is resilient, that it can handle these shocks.
So what are the concrete strategies they're leaning on, the established plans to kind of survive this new era of volatility?
Well, we see two major things happening. First, despite the backlash, despite the financial hit, they are apparently continuing to invest heavily in diverse content.
Okay, so doubling down on that broad appeal strategy.
Seems like it. It signals they're sticking to the idea that overall diverse programming brings in more subscribers than it might drive away in specific instances. It's a commitment to their existing model in a way.
But the second strategy, that feels like the more direct defense against this kind of volatility, right? Exploring new revenue streams.
Oh, absolutely. That's the most significant tactical shift we're seeing. They're pushing forward pretty aggressively, actually, with cheaper ad-supported subscription tiers.
The
ad tier. And this move, it's a direct response to subscriber price sensitivity. And it's a way to hedge against volatility.
How does it hedge exactly?
Well, the financial benefit is kind of twofold. First, it might capture or retain users who would otherwise leave for cheaper competitors. So it reduces that potential exodus threat.
Okay, keeps people in the ecosystem even if they pay less.
Right. And second, crucially, it monetizes those users through advertising, not just the subscription fee. That creates a whole new income stream. one that's potentially more stable and less sensitive to these sudden content-driven cancellation waves.
So the ad tier isn't just about getting more subscribers at a lower price point, it's building a structural defense.
Exactly. A defense against the exact kind of social media-fueled panic we just saw with the Musk incident.
It mitigates that specific risk.
Precisely. They're trying to build a business model that can withstand a sudden dip in premium subscribers because they have diversified how they make money from each user. Netflix's whole experience here, it's really a potent cautionary tale for, well, any subscription company about how fast market value can just evaporate when public perception gets weaponized on these huge social platforms.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just synthesize this. It wasn't just an influencer stirring things up.
No.
It was more like a powerful catalyst, exposing an underlying fragility that was already there.
That's the key takeaway for you listening. You need to understand that today, market valuation is directly, immediately vulnerable to public perception, especially when it's fueled by influential social figures.
That initial 15 billion shock.
That was the market waking up to the fact that subscriber loyalty, which maybe they thought was pretty solid, can actually be undermined instantly. Success now, it seems to hinge on building resilience, like that ad tier strategy.
Right.
Ways to separate the immediate shock of social media flare-ups from the slower, grinding, long-term competitive pressures coming from giants like Disney and Amazon.
Okay, that leaves us with one final, maybe provocative thought here, drawing from the sources and this tension we've discussed between creative freedom and financial reality. Given the absolutely staggering financial power of immediate public criticism versus the high cost, the risk of defending diverse or provocative creative choices, how long can Netflix realistically afford to keep investing so heavily in those broad, diverse content strategies?
Before the pressure forces a change.
Yeah, before audience expectations, amplified by figures like Musk, force some kind of permanent, measurable shift in what they greenlight, in their core programming focus. So what does this all really mean for the future of entertainment content risk?
It's a huge question.
It's a question I bet every studio executive is asking themselves right now.